want to give you guys a little introduction, a little teaser to one of the many books I've been reading this year for my year with Edith Wharton. And today we're going to talk about the custom of the country. So let's dive into this. Hello, book friends. It's Alyssa. Welcome back to the channel and welcome back to another book in my little series of videos on the books I've been reading this year from Edith Wharton. I have been spending most of this year reading Edith Wharton, reading books about Edith Wharton, diving in and out of biography. I even visited her house in Lenox, Massachusetts, and there is a video coming for that. It's just going to take a little bit of time for me to edit that one. I'm quite behind on doing these video summaries, but I am mostly caught up with my reviews over on Substack. So in the what's that thing called? In the description, I'm going to have a link to all the posts that I did for the custom of the country. And what I want this video to really be is not a rehashing of all of that, but kind of like a nice little summary, a little teaser, a little something to get you interested in reading works by Edith Wharton, these particular works by Edith Wharton. And if you care to, head on over to the Substack and dive a little deeper. There's going to be more in-depth summaries over there, more in-depth sort of look at different aspects of these stories and what Wharton may have been doing or how these stories maybe relate to her life. So that's enough preamble, I think. Let's jump into a brief summary of the custom of the country. Two things that you need to know about the custom of the country before you jump into this. The tone of this is so different than most of the Whartons that you're probably familiar with, like Ethan Frome, The House of Mirth, Age of Innocence. This is satirical. This is dark, but in a different way than The House of Mirth. It is filled with commentary on society, which is we have in all of her other books. That's a very common thing for Wharton, but the way this is done tonally is just so different. It's refreshing if you're reading a bunch of Wharton novels in a row. Also, this may have some of the best named characters in all of Western literature. So The Custom of the Country was written in 1913, and it follows Undine Spragg. What a name. She is a young woman who has aspirations. She is new money to the core. Her parents are from Apex, Missouri, I think. It's in the middle, in the flyover states. She is not from New York. She has arrived in New York. She has them staying at this nice hotel, and her father will do anything to keep her happy, to make her happy. She is like that. Who's the one in Charlie and the Chocolate Factory that wants the golden goose egg? Is it a Veruca Salt? She's got that kind of character where she wants what she wants and she's going to get what she gets and she's going to do what she needs to do to get it. She is spoiled, but you kind of love to hate her. And her mother really gives into all of her things. There's some lovely passages where you can see how Undine is just flying off the handle because she's not getting what she wants. And eventually everybody does what she wants because it's just easier to do what Undine wants you to do. So Undine is in New York to climb the social ladder. She has studied the magazines. She has this masseuse lady that comes and talks about the society pages with her and gets her intrigued into like who the people are that she should be paying attention to. And she wants to be seen. She wants to do the right things. She is determined to make it to the top of society, to make it in New York society. She has the money. She just has none of the class. So she finagles a box at the opera out of her father, which is quite an expensive thing. And she catches the eye of Ralph Marvell, and she ends up getting invited to have dinner with their family. Eventually, she marries this man. He is from an old New York family. They don't have as much money. They're not as like flashy as I think Undine would like. Ralph is a very sweet boy. He loves art and literature and leisure. He's a man of leisure. But he is also a man who cannot afford his own wife. Undine wants nice things. She wants to go to parties. She wants to be seen. When they get married and they go on honeymoon, he wants to be lounging in these country towns in Italy and enjoying the scenes and just having this like beautiful romantic moment with his wife. And Undine wants to be in town having parties and seeing her friends and living the high life. And you can already see that whatever love there may be between these two doesn't last very long, if it ever existed in the first place. And this is just the first of a few marriages that Undine manages to get herself into over the course of the novel. She eventually gets pregnant. They have a son, and Undine kind of abandons them and spends a lot of time in Paris, in Europe, and while Ralph is at home with his son, taking care of his son, when she is present with Ralph and their son, she's not very good at being a mother, as one could imagine, because she is quite selfish. And she's let down because she expected, more from Ralph. She thought she was going to get to a certain level of society, and she doesn't get there. So in the course of that marriage breaking down, she ends up in this affair with Peter Van Degen, who is technically married, and he's married to this woman that Ralph originally really loved, but they never really got together. But they're now leaning on each other because their spouses are together. I won't go into what happens to Ralph, but you can imagine that when your wife is draining the coffers faster than you can fill them, things take their toll on you. Ralph does have to get a job, which is crazy for someone of his set, and their income is very much supplemented by Undine's father. So she's also bleeding her father dry. And she is very intrigued by Peter Van Degen because Peter Van Degen is quite wealthy and can take her around Paris, take her here and there and everywhere, and give her the life that she really wants. But unfortunately, she's not marrying Peter Van Degen. When her marriage to Ralph fails, she ends up married to she ends up back in France. She ends up getting reacquainted with and marrying this Marquis Raymond de Chelles, and she marries her way into French aristocracy, thinking that that is finally going to be the thing that satisfies her. And as we know, nothing satisfies Undine. There's a lot of culture clashes between European values and American values. There's a lot of clashes between Undine's desire for all things like new and lack of understanding of heritage and culture and the way that aristocracy works. And there's a lot of clashes over her son, who is now living with her and Raymond. Her son's name is Paul, and Paul is growing up. He now has another father, and he is kind of this like lost lamb in this world. The Paul storyline is very sad. But there's also this other gentleman in the world of Undine Spragg, and his name is Elmer Moffat. And he's a peculiar character who pops up everywhere and anywhere. And anytime he pops up, something interesting is going to happen to the plot of this story. He is also from Apex. There is a past between these two, and you are waiting to find out exactly what happened, and you're waiting to see what will happen with the two of them now. He haunts this story, and all I will say is that by the end of the day, she goes through several marriages, and when she finally has everything she could ever want, in theory, the novel ends, and she's still not quite satisfied. Our final parting words from her leave you realizing that there is nothing that's going to satiate Undine. She is always going to want to go up to the next rung, to the next thing, to the next area of society. And that is the basic plot of this story. But let's talk about the nitty-gritty kind of interesting stuff that's actually happening and the commentary. So a lot of the novel is talking about, obviously, this difference between American culture and European culture. The chunks of the novel where she's married to the Marquis, there are these really great exchanges between the two of them, where she is wanting to sell some of the old tapestries and get some money and actually live like their aristocracy. She doesn't understand that the culture is the history and the history needs to be respected, and why one would want to hold on to these things that have been in the family forever and why they have meaning. And she doesn't understand the rules of society, especially as an American in Europe. But it's not just that she's sort of on the back foot in Europe, she's on the back foot in New York too. She can study that society as much as possible, but she doesn't understand fundamentally how things work within New York high society. She has these very modern and progressive ideas around things like marriage and divorce, and New York society is not having it. They have an awkward scene at a dinner where she is engaged to Ralph and joking about how if he doesn't do things right by her, she'll just get rid of him, because why should a girl be hitched to this guy? Which to a modern person, yeah, of course. Why would you stay with somebody who's making you miserable? But this doesn't go over very well at this society dinner, obviously, because you didn't do this. Claire, who's married to Peter Van Deeken, she would probably, if she was raised in the same sort of values as Undine, would probably have left Peter and gone with Ralph at some point. But that's not how things are done. Wharton is also highlighting the limitations that women have in terms of how they can advance in society. And their only option is through marriage. Elmer Moffat starts at the very bottom of the barrel, and he, through determination and some shady dealings, makes it to the tippity top of society. He makes a lot of money. He gets into rooms he would have never been in because of that money, and he can advance in ways that women do not even have an inkling. Like, there's no way that they would ever be able to do that. Marriage is a business transaction. Marriage is not something about love. Marriage is a thing that women can do to advance in society. But on the flip side of that, you have this growing culture and acceptance of divorce in the US and in Europe a little bit. But you have this easing of access. It's not easy, but this easing of access to divorce, which is allowing women to, if they can't afford it, if they come from the right background, they are able to leave bad marriages and maybe make a better one. And that's a very scary thing. So there's these changing morals. There's this old world, new world, old money, new money clashing that's happening. And because it's Edith Wharton, there's always this discussion of the ways that marriage limits women. But with Undine, it's also the ways that women can use marriage as a strategic thing to advance their lives. And it's interesting that she talks about this theme in her novel where we have an anti-heroine, in their novel where you have the woman that you would love to hate. She is not Lily Bart. Lily Bart is the opposite of Undine Spragg. This novel is just fun. It's a good time. I think if you want to see all the different ways that Wharton can write and write really well, this is an excellent book to add in. It's probably, it's not one of her lesser knowns, but it's not like the top books. I think her top three really are the ones I mentioned before. Ethan Frome, The House of Mirth, Age of Innocence, and then maybe The Custom of the Country. This is just so good. I just want to mention one other character that I thought was really interesting. There is this Charles Bowen character who feels like a self-insert for Wharton. He is a friend of Ralph Marvel's. He shows up at different parties. He shows up in New York. He shows up in France. He shows up everywhere. And he is just very interesting. When things come out of his mouth, it is quite clear that this is Wharton. She wants you to hear what she thinks. I mean, there's one scene where he just goes on and talks about the differences between basically European and American values. He says, to slave for women is part of the old American tradition. Lots of people give their lives for dogmas they've ceased to believe in. Then again, in this country, the passion for making money has preceded the knowing of how to spend it, and the American man lavishes his fortune on his wife because he doesn't know what else to do with it. Look about you and you'll see what I mean. Why does the European woman interest herself so much more in what the men are doing? Because she is so important to them that they make it worth her while. She's not a parenthesis, as she is here. She's in the very middle of the picture. Where does the real life of most American men lie? In some women's drawing room or in their offices. The answer is obvious, isn't it? The emotional center of gravity is not the same in the two hemispheres. In the effete societies, it's love. In our new one, it's business. In America, the real crime passionnel is a big steal. There's more excitement in wrecking railways than homes. That one scene, sort of a third of the way through the book, really, I think, summarizes a lot of what Wharton wants us to take away from this. This changing in morals, these differences in the things that we value. The European characters in this book value culture, tradition, family, following certain rules and rubrics. And Undine is not the person that's going to do that. Undine doesn't have depth. She doesn't want to learn about art and literature, or she's not going to be in salon culture. She is pretty. She is an ornament. She wants to be pampered and told she's pretty and beautiful and funny, but she doesn't have any depth. But this book has a lot of depth, and I think that this will be a really interesting read for anybody who hasn't read it before. So hopefully that got you interested in going a little deeper into the novel. Like I said, the Substack posts will be below if you want to go through that. If you've read this, I would love to hear all your thoughts on The Custom of the Country. Hopefully this gave you enough to make you interested. Anyway, thank you for watching. Like and subscribe, and I'll see you in my next video, whatever it may be, because it's my channel and I can do whatever I want.